Okay, so for this session, we'll be looking at worded problems involving simultaneous equations, which means with these worded problems, you can derive or find two equations and then solve them simultaneously. Before we do that, let's just practice some of our algebra skills and when it comes to worded problems and finding equations from worded problems. So for example, if we have just quickly an equation, just say x plus 2 equals 5. Now we can say it this way, but to write this as a problem, we could write it as, for example, what is a number plus 2 to give us 5, or that is 5. So there are certain keywords that we need to look over. So just quickly, here are some keywords that common keywords that you'll come across. The first one, if you see sum, you know you are adding, it involves addition. So I could say the sum, for this problem here, I could say the sum of a number plus 2 is 5. Difference involves subtraction. So if I had x take away 2 to give me 5, I could say the difference of a number and 2 is 5 or equals 5. And what is the number? So equal or is quite common, means the equal sign, so equals something. If you see double a number or double, we're saying 2 times something or 2 times that number, just say x. And if you see the word product, it's involving multiplication. And for example, the product of two numbers, just say the product of 2 times 3, the product would be 6. So 6 is the product. And that's how it links to multiplication. So these are some keywords that you have to keep an eye out for. And there are others, but they're the main ones that you'll see. So for this equation here, I want you to write a worded problem in your own words, and don't just say, actually no, yeah, write it out how you like, and I'll type mine up. So we could say for this problem here, the worded problem could be double a number plus 6 equals 10. And we know double is saying 2 times a number. In this case, I'm calling it x plus 6 equals 10. So I could have had, instead of equals, I could have had is. I could have also had the sum of double a number and 6 equals 10. So worded problems can get tricky. You got to keep practicing. And to solve this, you would solve it normally. So you could have 2x equals 10 minus 6 is 4. So remember, minus 6 on both sides. Divide by 2, and x would equal 2. So the number was 2. So let's double check. If I double a number, so 2 plus 2 is 4. And plus 6, yep, it equals 10. So now I'll put up some more questions. And let's just have a look. So these questions here only have involve writing one equation. I'll just enlarge it. Okay, and we'll look at these steps in a minute. So I'll just go down. All right, so when you have to find an equation for a worded problem, what you could do is just cross off any keywords and write the symbol for it. So for the first one, we have number 1 says a number multiplied by 2 is 21. What is the number? So I'll just write that out. So a number multiplied by 2 is 21. So a number, you can use any variable you want. I'll just use x because x is the most common variable. So I'll cross off number and I'll write x below it. Okay, so a number that I'm calling x multiplied, the symbol for multiplication is times by 2. So 2 is there for us. Is, so instead of is, I can put an equal sign. Equals 21. So let's see what I've got. So I end up with x times 2 is 21. And this is easy to solve. We really have just 2x, which equals 21. And divide them both by 2. So once you have your equation, you are to solve this. And half of 21, we end up with 10.5. Okay, and that's it. And you can double check if your answer is correct just by reading the question. A number multiplied by 2, so 10.5 times 2, yeah, that's 21. Okay, the next question said, asked us the sum of a number and 10 is 15, and what is the number? So we know that sum, the symbol we would use is addition of a number that I'll call x, so I have to find what x is, is equal, so it's equal to 15. So the sum of a number, which I'm calling x and 10. So I would have the sum of these two numbers, so x plus 10 is 15 or equals 15. And to solve this, we now minus 10 on both sides, so we end up with, if we minus 10, 15 minus 10 would leave us with 5. So the number was actually 5. So I now want you to have a go at questions 3, 4, and 5. So just write them out, and you first have to write an equation. I know sometimes some of them are quite basic and you can work it out mentally, but practice writing equations, and we'll be using this skill when it comes to simultaneous problems, and that's where it involves writing not just one equation but two equations. So have a go first, and then I'll give you the answers. Okay, so the equations you should have ended up with for these three questions are here. So this one is saying double a number divided by 3, so 2 times a number divided by 3 is 2. And just if you solve this, we'd have, well, get rid of the 3 first, times 3, this cancels out. So we end up with 2x equals 6. And we'll change colour. And last of all, divide by 2 and divide by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So your number should have been 3. With question 4, that's pretty easy. Just plus 3 on both sides. So x should have equaled 10, because 7 plus 3 would have given us 10. And that would have cancelled out there. And this one here, the total costs. With question 4, it was the difference of a number is 3 and 7. It's very important that x came first and not the 3. So the difference of a number, so x came first, and then take away 3. With question 5, the total costs of a number, or x, and $20 is $60. So that's pretty straightforward. You add them together, and so we solve this. So x would have been 60 take away 20 was $40. Okay, and that was pretty straightforward. So now let's look at some questions involving simultaneous problems where you have to now write two equations. So when we have to write two equations, follow these 5 main steps, and that is the first one, read, of course, the questions carefully and define the two variables. Define means to state what the variables represent. For example, x could equal number of lollies and y could be number of drinks, just say. And it's important that you state what the variables are so we know what x is and what y is. With 3, sorry, it's only 4 points. So second point, formulate 2 equations from the given information. So when you have your 2 equations, you are to then come up with 2 equations from the information given, and then with those 2 equations, you have to use either substitution or elimination to find the solution. And then, of course, state what you have found. It's important that you explain what you have found to show that you understand what you were doing. So with our first question, this is our problem. I received better results for my maths test than my English test. So we have 2 different variables. That's for our maths and English. Now, if the sum of the 2 marks is 164, so in that part here, there is one equation we can write. And then the difference is 22. That would be our second equation. Find the mark for each subject. So following those steps, our first step will be, just clear the page, to first state your variables. So we can say x can represent maths.
Attention student.
And y can equal English. And if you want to write marks, then, because we're focusing on the marks they get. Okay, Our next step is to now come up with two equations from the given information. Our first equation comes from this part here, and that is if the sum of the 2 marks is 164. So we're going to be focusing on this part here. So if the sum of the 2 marks is 164, we know sum means plus or to add. And what are we adding? We are adding the 2 marks of the subjects. Now we don't know what the marks are, but we have said that X is maths and Y is English. So all we have to do is say, well, the X mark plus the Y mark is equal to 164. And there's our first equation. And the next equation comes in the second part of that sentence. Whoop. Sorry. And it says, and the difference is 22. And difference, we know we are now subtracting. So we'll get the marks of the 2 tests again. So we have X for my maths test. Take away now Y. Okay? So the difference means difference of my maths test and my English test. So we're subtracting, and the score is 22. And now we have our 2 equations. Now it is your choice what you want to use to solve these 2 equations. There are 2 options, substitution or elimination. You decide what is, I guess, the quickest and easiest for you. With this one, if you were to use substitution, you would have to make for either this equation here or the one down here, Y equal everything or X equal everything, and then sub it in. But because it's arranged in this form, I might just use elimination. So I'm going to state what I'm using. I'm using elimination to solve, to find the solution, to find the marks for X, which is maths, and to find the marks for Y, which is English. So now I have a look and see. I can see the variables of X and X are the same. I've got a 1 there and a 1 there, and also the Y variables are the same, 1 there and a 1 there. So it's my choice what I want to eliminate. I might eliminate my Y. So I'm going to show that I've got a 1 there and a 1 there, and I'm going to do my quick test. That's a positive one. That's a negative one. And I want them to equal 0. What do I put in the middle? If I put take away, it'll end up becoming addition. So I have to now put a plus, because addition and subtraction give me a negative. So I will be subtracting these 2 equations. Okay, I just made some more room. So now, by subtracting these 2 equations, I will have... Sorry, I just made a mistake. I know I'm supposed to have plus here, okay? So I'm going to be... actually, sorry. So I will be adding these 2 equations. So I should put a plus here, because like I said, I'll put a plus in the middle saying 1 plus a negative 1 will give me 0. So 1y plus a negative 1y will give me a 0. So I've eliminated my y's by doing that. So I end up with x plus x, which is 2x. That's 0y, which I'm not going to write, equals, now I've got 164 plus 22, which leaves me with 186. Okay, and now I solve for x. So divide by 2 on both sides, and we're left with x equals 186 divided by 2 is 93, and that's our answer. Now, what did X represent? X represented the maths work. So just keep in mind, that's the score for the maths. Okay, and I'm going to be writing this in my statement. Okay, so just keep this in mind. But we haven't finished. We now have to figure out what is Y, and Y is our English scores. So what do we get for our English mark? So now it is your choice. You pick either equation and sub in when X is equal to 93. So when X equals 93, I might just pick the first equation. So instead of X, I'll just write here, I'm summing it in. So into equation 1. Now I should have labeled these equations to show clear working out, equation 1 and equation 2. So I'm subbing in when X is 93 into equation 1. Okay, so I have 93, it's now plus Y equals 164, And all I've got to do now is solve for y. That's a positive 93. So I take away 93 on both sides to cancel it out. And 164 take away 93 will give me my score for my English work. And it leaves us with 71. All right, I'll just make some more room. So please make sure you're writing this out neatly in your workbook so it's in order, because mine's sort of all over the place because I haven't got room. All right, and just that bit. Now, so remember, y represented our English score. So this is our English score. That's why it's important that you identify and state what your variables are. So now you must write your final statement. So what have you found to show your teacher you understand what you have found? So therefore, you could say, we can start with our math score. So therefore, maths score was 93 and English score was 71. Just write a quick statement, and we are correct because we can see 93 is a better score than 71, and the question initially did tell us that I received better results for my maths test. So if your maths test wasn't better, then we may have made a mistake. Okay, I want you to have a go at this question here. It's the same process that we had with our other question. And so find two numbers whose difference is 5 and whose sum is 11. So just pause it and write down the two equations we can write from this question here. But remember, you must identify your variables. For example, you could say x is number 1 and y is number 2. So your first step would have been identifying your variables. I've chosen x to be the number 1, the first number, y could be my second number, and these are the two equations that I came up with from the information given. And this is saying the difference between these two numbers is 5, whereas this one is saying the sum of the two numbers is 11. Now you solve these simultaneously and check your answer with the person next to you. Okay, our next question, starting to look like it's more complicated, but it's not. Let's read the question. I have $3.10 change in my pocket. If I only have 50-cent and 20-cent pieces, and the total number of coins is 11, how many coins of each type do I have? So the question is asking us how many 50-cent coins and how many 20-cent coins are in my pocket. Under these conditions, that the total number of coins I have is 11 and the value in total is $3.10. So first of all, let's identify our variables. So we can use x and y. X can be 50-cent pieces and y could just be the 20-cent pieces. So I've identified what they represent, and now I have to come up with two equations. Come up with two equations from the information given. Now, doing this one for the first time is a bit tricky, so we'll do it step by step. Now, I want to highlight there are two things. There is value. $3.10 is a value. And there is also a total number of coins, which there are 11 coins in total. So these 2 points are very important because now, for our first equation, we can use the value. So for example, if I have the total being $3.10 for one equation, so I know the total is $3. I'll write the dollar sign for now to emphasize that. It's $3.10. That's how much value I have. I don't know how many coins I have how many of each coin I have, but I know that if I have a certain amount of 50-cent pieces, which is X, and a certain amount of 20-cent pieces, which is Y, that will give me my $3.10. Depending on what X is and what Y is, will give me my $3.10. So that is my first equation. This is the one where it equaled the value, the total amount, $3.10. That is why we have 50 cents times the amount of coins we have, and 20 cents times the amount of coins we have, the amount of 20-cent pieces we have. We don't know what it is, but that's why this equation here has the 50 cents in it and the 20 cents in it. Okay. Now, the next part of our equation, or the second equation, is the total amount of coins is 11. So for this one, the next equation, well, I know the total amount of coins is equal to 11. It's not about value, so it's simply x plus y equals 11. Sorry about the bell. Okay, and these will be our two equations that we'll use to solve this simultaneously. Now the next tip is, see how we got $3.10? Change this to cents by timesing it by 100, so 1, 2, and then change it back to dollars later. So this will be 300 cents, just to make it easier for us to work with. And now you can solve this using substitution or elimination. It's up to you. If you want to use substitution, I'd get this equation here and make y equal everything. So y equals 11 and then minus x. And you can sub this in to this equation here and replace x, or you can use elimination. And if you solve this, your answer should have been this. X should have equaled 3 and y should have equaled 8. So saying you got 3 50-cent pieces and 8 20-cent pieces.